Curiosity is a dangerous thing. It starts as a whisper in the back of your mind, an itch you just have to scratch. That's how I ended up at Hollow Mine, a place locals spoke about in hushed tones, a name that carried weight like a warning. They said the mine was cursed, that those who entered never truly left. The tunnels stretched deep into the earth, swallowing light and sound, a maze of darkness and forgotten history. I didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in curses. But that night, I learned the truth. It was late October when I finally decided to see it for myself. The moon hung low, bathing the abandoned entrance in pale, ghostly light. The wooden beams framing the entrance were rotting, the old warning sign barely legible beneath years of decay. "Keep out, do not enter." I stepped forward. The moment my boots hit the damp earth inside, the air grew thick, heavy. It smelled of rusted metal and something older, something wrong. My flashlight flickered as I moved deeper, the tunnels stretching endlessly ahead. Then I heard it, a whisper. At first I told myself it was the wind, air shifting through the tunnels. But as I took another step, it came again, clearer this time. "Turn back." I froze, my breath sharp in my chest. The whisper hadn't come from behind me. It had come from inside the mine. Swallowing my fear, I pressed on. The tunnel walls felt closer now, the darkness shifting in unnatural ways. Shadows pooled at my feet, creeping along the ground, moving when I wasn't looking. Then my flashlight flickered again and went out. Panic clawed at my throat. I smacked the light, trying to bring it back to life, but the tunnel was drowning in pitch black now. And in that silence, something moved. A scrape, a shuffle, a breath that wasn't mine. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slick with sweat. The dim glow of the screen barely cut through the dark. That's when I saw it. A figure stood at the end of the tunnel, not quite human. Its form stretched, flickering like a dying flame. Its eyes, hollow voids, locked onto mine. My pulse thundered as it took a step forward, its limbs moving unnaturally, bending where they shouldn't. The whisper returned, but this time it was a chorus. "It's awake. It's hungry. You don't belong here." The figure lunged. I ran. My feet pounded against the damp ground, the tunnel warping around me. The air grew colder, thicker, as if the mine itself was closing in. The whispers turned to laughter, deep, guttural, inhuman. My flashlight sputtered back to life just as I reached a rusted ladder leading up. Without thinking, I grabbed it, climbing as fast as I could. The tunnel beneath me roared, the darkness surging upward, reaching for me. My hands burned as I pulled myself up, muscles screaming in protest. Just as I reached the surface, the laughter stopped. I collapsed onto the ground outside, gasping for breath. The mine entrance loomed behind me, silent once more. But as I turned to leave, a final whisper brushed against my ear. "Next time, we won't let you go." I never went back, and I never will.
There are some things in this world that simply can't be explained. Stories passed down, warnings ignored. But what if the warnings were real? What if something was waiting in the dark, just beyond your sight, listening? This is the story of Ethan Carter, and the night he met the Whispering Man.
Ethan Carter had never been afraid of the dark. As a night shift security guard at a remote warehouse, he was used to long, lonely hours. The building was old, rows of metal shelves stacked high with forgotten boxes, the hum of flickering lights casting jagged shadows. It started with a whisper, soft, distant, just on the edge of hearing. A voice, but not quite a voice. At first, Ethan dismissed it as the wind slipping through cracked windows. But then it came again, closer, a breathy murmur right behind him. "Ethan." His blood ran cold. Spinning around, flashlight in hand, he found nothing but stillness. Just the rows of crates and the hum of dying fluorescent lights. He swallowed hard, forcing a chuckle. Maybe it was just his mind playing tricks. Then the whisper returned. "You can hear me now." A chill crawled up Ethan's spine. The voice wasn't coming from any one direction. It was everywhere. Above him, beneath him, inside him. He fumbled for his radio, his fingers trembling. "Base, this is Ethan. I think there's someone in here with me." Static. The whispering turned into soft laughter, hollow and dry, curling around him like invisible fingers. His flashlight flickered. The air grew thick, heavy. Then, a single box 10 feet away toppled over with a loud thud. Ethan froze. The beam of his flashlight wavered as he pointed it at the fallen box. The air felt wrong, dense, like he was being watched. Then something moved. A shadow that shouldn't exist, shifting along the warehouse wall. It wasn't cast by his light. He took a step back. "Run!" His heart slammed against his ribs. The voice was inches from his ear now, but there was no breath, no warmth. Just the chilling sensation of being seen. He turned and ran, feet pounding against the concrete, the whisper following him, growing louder until it was a deafening chorus of voices. He burst through the exit, gasping for air. The cold night never felt so safe. But as he turned back to the warehouse, he saw it. A tall, distorted figure standing in the doorway, its mouth unmoving, but still the whispers poured out. Then, silence. The lights inside flickered once, twice, and went out. Ethan never stepped foot in that warehouse again, and no one ever found out what he saw that night. But the legend of the Whispering Man, it still lingers. Some say if you stand alone in a dark room and listen carefully, you might just hear him whispering your name. There are some places in this world that just don't feel right. Places where, even if you don't see anything, you can feel something is off. I learned that the hard way on a camping trip deep in the Catskills. It was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway. Just me, my best friend Aaron, and his cousin Brooke. We wanted to disconnect from the world, enjoy nature, and hike some of the lesser-known trails. The first day was perfect. We hiked for miles, set up camp near a quiet clearing, and spent the evening around the fire sharing stories. But as the night stretched on, the peacefulness faded. It started with the noises, subtle at first, twigs snapping, rustling in the bushes. At first, we dismissed it as an animal, but then we heard something else, something that made my skin crawl. A whistle. 3 short, distinct notes. It wasn't wind, it wasn't an animal. It was deliberate, and it was close. Aaron shined his flashlight into the trees, but we saw nothing. "Probably another camper messing with us," Brooke said, but her voice lacked conviction. We tried to laugh it off, but none of us slept easy that night. Sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up. A strange sensation gripped me, like I was being watched. I peeked out of my tent and my breath caught in my throat. Brooke was outside, standing completely still, facing the woods. Her back was to me, arms limp at her sides. Something about the way she stood, unnatural, rigid, made every instinct scream at me to wake Aaron. I nudged him hard, whispering his name. He stirred and groggily followed my gaze. "Brooke," he called out. She didn't move, didn't respond. Then, without warning, she turned and walked straight back to her tent without a word. The way she moved, stiff and almost mechanical, made my stomach churn. The next morning, Brooke had no memory of standing outside. "I never left my tent," she insisted. But Aaron and I knew what we saw. That day, we decided to cut our trip short. We packed up quickly and started the long hike back. But the feeling never left, like we weren't alone. The forest was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. And then, as we neared the main trailhead, that whistle came again. 3 short notes, this time impossibly close. We ran. We didn't stop until we reached the car. As we drove away, I glanced back at the tree line, and for just a second, I swore I saw someone standing there. Not moving, just watching. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know who or what was out there. But I do know one thing. We were not alone in those woods, and I will never go back.